Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party is for season 17 episode 8, and the guests this week were Juiciest and Kori King. So today we're going to be talking about Kori revealing something that Lexi said to her on set that showed that she's really competitive. Someone exposed some potential shady editing that made Suzie and Acacia look worse than they were, and the Snatch game character that Kori was stopped from doing. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. But just before we start, I recently hit 120,000 subscribers, so thank you so much to everyone who subscribed. My next goal is now 150,000, so please make sure you hit the subscribe button to help me get to that goal, because I'd love to get to 150k by the end of the year. So let's see if we can make that happen. Thank you! So they started off by saying that they were looking forward to this week's episode because it was the Rusical. Kori said that the Rusical is an iconic challenge and she can't wait to see who does well and who does badly. Host Naysha Lopez then joked that Kori already knew who did well or not because she was there. Kori then said, quote, "I'm not going to lie, halfway through this episode I was blackout drunk. So actually I don't remember some of this." And she joked that this was going to be new for her too, and people laughed. They moved on, and Naysha brought up the Snatch game from last week and sarcastically said that it was going to go down in history, presumably because the Snatch game was not that well received. But Naysha brought up that Kori had a different character that she was going to do instead. This is referring to the fact that after the episode aired, Kori posted several videos and photos of her dressed as Michael Jackson, and she even filmed cameos and did other videos dressed as Michael Jackson, and this got a huge amount of traction on social media, with people saying that her impression of Michael was unhinged.
He said, "Hi Michael, hi." He said, "I heard you got a little sugar in your tank." No, never. I was ignorant, you're ignorant.
But back to Roscoe's, and Naysha mentioned this to Kori and said that her first option for Snatch Game was Michael Jackson. There was then a break, and Naysha read out a question from a VIP member, which was whether production didn't allow Kori to do Michael Jackson and what the story is. Kori explained that Drag Race has to approve your Snatch Game character in advance, and when Kori said that she wanted to do Michael Jackson, according to Kori, they said, quote, "No, don't bring that, it's a no, it's a chop." Later at Roscoe's, Naysha asked if they ever gave a reason why Kori couldn't do Michael Jackson, but Kori said no, they didn't go into detail. So, last minute, Kori chose to be Big Ange instead because she knew she wouldn't go home by doing that, and she joked that when she saw what the others were doing during Snatch Game, she knew for sure that she was going to be safe. Kori explained that she's really good friends with Suzie Toot, so she doesn't mind saying this, but she said about Suzie's performance, quote, "That bleep was ass," and everyone laughed. She went on to say that they actually edited Suzie to look better than she actually was because it was, quote, "crazy," and Kori felt that RuPaul was tired of it and wanted to move on to the next person. Kori then said, quote, "Snatch Game, I was bored, and I was sitting there." The other host, Caramel, then brought up that people had different opinions about Lexi Love's performance as Gilbert Gottfried, and she asked what Kori thought about this as someone who was actually there. Kori laughed and said it was like breaking the fourth wall, and it was, quote, "crazy," because Lexi wasn't just fumbling during her own answers. Apparently, during everyone's answer, Lexi kept muttering to herself and saying things like, quote, "Oh, effing bleep," and then she would turn to the other contestants and say things like, "Oh, Sam, that was a good one, effing bleep," presumably because she knew she was doing badly. Kori said that everyone could still hear what Lexi was saying, and it wasn't as if they were turning the mics off. The other host, Batty Davis, said that the judges liked her performance because she was funny and was breaking character. But Kori said she thinks Lexi was out of character the whole time, and she was so funny out of character that the judges thought that it was a deliberate choice by Lexi, but it actually wasn't, and it was, quote, "Lexi was just struggling." They then watched the part of this week's episode when Suzie seemed annoyed that Anya was doing well in rehearsal because Suzie wanted the win this week. Kori said she had no idea how, quote, bitter Suzie was, and during filming she didn't realise Suzie had said all those things, so watching it now was a gag. Georges jokingly said that Suzie was shady, and Naysha said production was doing a good job showing all the shadiness, bitterness, and people being delusional. Then Naysha asked Kori in general, has the editing of the season so far been accurate? Kori said she thinks the editing has been pretty accurate, and when we watch the show, she always thinks, quote, thank effing God that they saw that. The only thing that the edit didn't show is that Kori and Suzie are actually really good friends, but they cut all of that out, so it looks like Kori and Suzie, quote, hate each other. But Kori said maybe because the two of them were so close, they were being shady to each other all the time, and maybe production genuinely thought they were being shady, but it's actually because they're friends. Kori also said she didn't realise how much Acacia was struggling during her recording session, so seeing it on TV was crazy. And on the back of that, there is a little bit of tea about the editing of this episode that happened outside of Roscoe's, to do with Suzie's edit as well as Acacia's. So one of my followers, called Lazarus, messaged me on Instagram and shared that they were at a viewing party where Suzie Toot was the guest, and Suzie had spilled some information about this week's episode, and they sent me a short video clip and summarised what happened. I can't verify all of this, but this is what I was told. So apparently Suzie revealed that when they were doing the audio recording, Michelle asked all of the queens if they got the role that they wanted, so she knew that both Suzie and Acacia wanted the role of Kansas Dorothy. Apparently when it came time for Acacia to record after Suzie had recorded, Michelle said, quote, let's see what you can do. Suzie also shared that they got 2 days to rehearse for the Rusical. One day was for the solo numbers, and the second day was for the group number. And according to Suzie, the backup dancers forgot the counts for the dance on the second day, so Suzie had to teach the counts to the dancers because she remembered the count from her theatre training. Also, Amanda from the Pressed Conference podcast was at Tribe in Nashville, and Acacia was the guest for the viewing party this week, and she also spilled some tea about this episode, and Amanda summarised what happened in a voice note that she sent to me.
Right after we watched the part where Acacia was filming her bit for the vocals for the Rusical, she pointed out, in her words, how the edit was going. So when Anya went up, she says they played her track. It was on beat, on the same key, and it looked good. But then when she went on, she says that they played like a track that wasn't the same key as her to make her look bad. And then asking, obviously and the princess was like, oh, well, yeah. And they were cut to ask if you wanted water and this and that, which obviously everybody else does. I went back and I looked at the recording again because I was like, did they give it a different song? I believe that the track that they did play underneath it is the same track. Maybe they made it play back maybe slightly out of sync, but the key was the same as the original. So I'm like, maybe is she referencing that they made the footage of her singing slightly pitched up so it's not matching? In my musical opinion, I think it is what it was. It was slightly sharp, and that was fixed in post for the vocal.
And they may talk more about this on the Pressed Conference podcast for this week, so I'll link to their channel in the description so you can go and check it out. Also, on the same topic of potential shady editing, I saw that a Twitter user pointed out that in the episode, during the vocal recording session, when Acacia was shown to be struggling, they zoomed in on Suzie, who was smiling, potentially making Suzie look shady. However, the Twitter user noticed that you can see that Acacia is actually sitting next to Suzie in that shot because she was wearing a green top and no one else was wearing green apart from Suzie and Acacia. And in the wide shot, we can see that during Acacia's recording, Sam was actually sitting on Suzie's left side and Sam was wearing black. But then in the zoom-in shot, the person on the left of Suzie is clearly wearing green, which is Acacia. So this was some potential misleading editing to make it look like Suzie was being shady towards Acacia, but in reality, this clip must have actually happened during someone else's recording because Acacia was actually sitting next to Suzie. And in general, there seemed to be a lot of talk about shady editing this week, and I just thought that this was some potential interesting tea that people sent to me, so thank you to everyone who shared this tea with me. Okay, back to Roscoe's, and Naysha brought up Kori's outfit from last week when she was dressed as a mime and had regular French tip nails on, and Naysha had said last week that this was not a great outfit, so Naysha asked what Kori's thought process was for this outfit. Kori explained that she and her friend came up with the concept for that outfit, and they thought it would be the quote ultimate troll for her to be dressed as a mime with regular French tips and be safe, while everyone else was wearing really expensive outfits. So Kori said she thought it was so funny and, quote, I was doing this for me. And she also said that every runway, she was doing it for her own amusement because it was an inside joke. Georges then asked how Kori felt when she saw everyone else's looks when they were getting ready in the workroom. Kori shared that when she put the outfit on, she felt like she was eating everybody up and the others just didn't get it. Apparently Jules Sparkles looked at Kori and said, quote, Kori, what the F is this? Kori joked that this was some, quote, high fashion next level bleep and that Jules just didn't get it, and everyone laughed. Then, in Untucked, apparently Suzie kept saying just how terrible Kori's outfit was, and Kori just said, quote, you wish you could do this. Naysha agreed and said that some girls can get away with certain things, and Kori laughed and said, quote, yeah, I've been doing it for a couple of episodes now. Kori also said she was saying to the other queens, quote, how much did you spend on this outfit and you're safe? They moved on, and Caramel mentioned Kori's relationship with Lydia B. Collins, and they may be potentially the first queens who have stayed together after the show. Cara asked Kori if she and Lydia decided to play it cool because they were worried that they may put the two of them in the bottom together. Kori said although they were flirting and stuff on set, they didn't really think about playing it up for the cameras, which is probably why they didn't catch a lot of it, and they were genuinely just in a relationship and not thinking about how it looked on camera. Naysha asked what the extent of their relationship is, and Kori confirmed that they are together officially, and everyone clapped and cheered at Roscoe's, which Kori seemed sort of surprised at, so perhaps Kori thought that everyone already knew they were officially together. Naysha asked if their relationship happened on set and did it progress after filming. Kori said it progressed after they got home and then it flourished a couple of months after filming. They then moved on and watched the runways for this week, and Naysha asked how much Kori spent on all of her outfits for Drag Race. Kori joked that she only spent $4 and everyone laughed. But she said she doesn't really know exactly how much she spent, but a ballpark figure was probably around $15,000. Naysha said that was fierce, and Georges also seemed to agree, presumably because that's not that much compared to some of the other queens nowadays. Kori said that Lexi kept going around saying that she had spent $55,000, and Kori just thought, quote, whoa. Also, just as a quick funny moment that happened at Roscoe's, Batty Davis at one point asked Georges who was her favourite from this season so far. Georges then said, quote, Monet Exchange, and everyone laughed and cheered. Just to explain in case you don't get this reference, several years ago, Georges was at Roscoe's for a viewing party for UK vs the World Season 1, and when they asked Georges who her favourite was so far, she said Monet Exchange. However, the host pointed out that Monet was not on the season, and it turned out that Georges actually meant Mo Heart and she had confused the two of them. And after that, people kept making jokes about Georges, thinking that Monet Exchange and Mo Heart are the same person. But back to this week's Roscoe's, and they then watched more of the episode, and Caramel asked Kori how long it took for her and Jules to get over the fight they had when they both wanted the same role, and did it go on for longer than what we saw. Kori said it went on for a lot longer than what was shown, but the thing is that she and Jules are so close, so they were just joking and doing a bit to, quote, ham it up, so they were just having fun and they laughed about it afterwards. However, she said the disagreement between Acacia and Suzie was real, and it was, quote, awkward and uncomfortable. Kori also said that Suzie was clearly desperate for the role because she really wanted a third win. But Acacia was so desperate for anything because she had, quote, only had 4 confessionals the entire season. They watched the runways, and Naysha asked if this outfit by Kori was a coincidence, because Kori's outfit was Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and the Rusical this week was also based on The Wizard of Oz. Kori said it was a pure coincidence, but when Kori took her outfit out, Lexi came over and Kori described that Lexi is, quote, in it to win it, and anything that she thinks is BS, she'll call it out. So apparently Lexi pointed at Kori's outfit this week and said, quote, why the F does her outfit match with this week? What's going on? Presumably because Lexi thought that there was something suspicious going on. Georgia seemed really surprised and asked if Lexi really did that, and Kori said, quote, girl, she's in it, Lexi don't play. Kori then explained that in the first week, Lexi had revealed that she had a piece of paper where she had written down all of the queens' names with their strengths and weaknesses, and she was crossing it off every time a queen got eliminated. Georgia then joked that if she had been on the season, she would have had beef with Lexi. They then watched the part of the episode when Kori lip-synced against Acacia and won, and everyone clapped and cheered for Kori. Naysha asked Kori what was going through her head in that moment. Kori had previously said that she knew she was going to be in the bottom and she agreed with the judges' critiques, and that the judges are rarely wrong. Apparently, Kori had been saying for weeks that she really liked the song Wet Dream by Adam Lambert, and anyone who went up against her with that song would be going home. So when it was announced that the lip sync song for this week was that song, everyone said, quote, F, Kori sending someone home this week, and everyone was scared to go up against Kori in that lip sync. But by the time they lip-synced, Kori said she was, quote, blackout drunk because she had not eaten all day because she wanted to, quote, feel the alcohol. So in Untucked, she had her own drink, Lydia's drink, and she also had Arietti and Anya's drinks when they weren't looking. So by the time she did the lip sync, she had had about 6 House of Love cocktails and she was swaying while standing on the runway. But watching the lip sync back, she didn't think it was that bad. I also saw that Kori tweeted about this after the episode came out and said, the way I could tell I was blackout drunk during that lip sync LMFAO. And Lana Duray also tweeted about this and said, we were drunk as F in Untucked, oh my. But back to Roscoe's, and Kori said she knew that she was going to win the lip sync even though she was drunk. However, Kori added that if you look at the end of the lip sync, you'll see that Acacia doesn't have her shoes on. So Kori didn't see what Acacia had been doing during the lip sync, but when she saw that her shoes were off, she assumed that Acacia must have been dancing so much that they fell off, but watching it back now, that clearly wasn't the case. Also, Kori said when her wig fell off, she, quote, sobered up, but she still knew she wasn't going home, and, quote, you have to be delusional on the show, and you have to believe that you're going to stay no matter what. They then moved on, and Naysha asked if Suzie was getting a bit cocky or arrogant by this point in the competition, because a few other queens have said that. Kori said she loves Suzie and they're really close, but yes, she was. Kori said that at first, Suzie was so taken back that she won the first challenge, and she was so thankful that the other queens gave her the recognition. But then when she won her second challenge, she said that the other queens didn't get it, and then she said that she was, quote, the jinx of her season, I am the underdog. And Kori said she's rooting for Suzie and she was supporting Suzie and gassing her up. For example, during the RDR Live challenge with the pink runway, Kori, quote, stirred the pot in Untucked to make the other queens, quote, bully Suzie, and she did that so that Suzie could clap back at the others who were criticising her outfit in Untucked. But then when Suzie was getting cocky about the Snatch game, Kori thought, quote, I can't help you no more girl, I can only narrate so much, and everyone laughed. They then moved on to the Q&A, and an audience member said that during the Meet the Queens, Crystal Envy alluded to a yes or no argument that we have yet to see, and she asked Kori if she can spill what happened. Kori said she can't say too much, but she said, quote, Lexi was not the only one who was part of Rhinestone Gate. It was much more elaborate than it was, but that's all she said about it. But it sounds like during the incident when Lexi complained to production that Hormona had used her own stones and was forced to take them off, it sounds like maybe Crystal was also involved, but Kori didn't share any details about how. A different audience member then asked Kori about the fact that she had referenced Monet Exchange during one of her runways, and she also said in her Meet the Queens that Kori kept saying, quote, sweet as St. Lucia. Just in case you don't know, this reference comes from a video of Monet Exchange from years ago when she won the Miss Gay Caribbean pageant, and during an interview at the pageant, Monet seemed to have a strong Caribbean accent where she said, quote, "sweet as St. Lucia."
Pageant, how does it feel?
It feels so good, so good. Just as sweet as St. Lucia.
Aye, aye, aye. What does this mean representing your country?
This means everything to me. I love St. Lucia. I am St. Lucia to the core of my heart, to the core of my spirit. I love all my St. Lucia family.
And people have been joking about this for years because Monet's accent was so different than it is usually. Bob and Monet have even discussed it several times on their podcast, and Monet once explained that when she visits her family in the Caribbean, all of them have such a strong Caribbean accent that she ends up doing it too. And the sweet as St. Lucia has now become a meme about Monet Exchange. But back to Roscoe's, and Kori said she's obsessed with Monet and she's her favourite drag queen ever, which is why she referenced her in the runway outfit. And this is also the reason why she kept saying sweet as St. Lucia in her Meet the Queens, and she thought that they were only going to keep one of the times she said it in the edit, but they ended up keeping all of them in. And for example, the YouTube channel Hyro Evangelista even did a supercut of all the times Kori said this.
The drag scene in Boston, honestly, is as sweet as St. Lucia. No, but seriously, being on the 17th season of RuPaul's Drag Race is as sweet as St. Lucia. I am America's next drag superstar because I am as sweet as St. Lucia.
It feels so good. Just as sweet as St. Lucia.
And finally, Nasia asked a question about a rumour about Kori's talent show outfit being different than what it was supposed to be. Kori revealed that she actually had a different bodysuit that she was going to wear for the talent show, which had appliques and rhinestones on it. But when you get to Drag Race, you have no time to unpack your stuff, and Kori's station was next to Suzie's station, and Kori couldn't find the outfit that she wanted to wear for the talent show, so she ended up having to wear a different bodysuit instead. And then, about 3 weeks later, she realised that one of her bins with her outfits inside it was actually in Suzie's station, and she didn't realise it was there, and that was where her original talent show outfit was. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for Season 17, Episode 8. What did you think of this season's Rusical? And what's your favourite Rusical of all time? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos and access to the exclusive Patreon chat, please check out my Patreon because it just costs a few dollars a month. It really helps support my channel and it really does make a huge difference to me being able to make these videos. So please check it out and I'll put a link in the description. And I'd just like to say thank you so much to all of my existing Patreon members. Your support really does blow me away every single time. I love the community I've built on Patreon and I love talking to you all on Patreon. So thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on my videos because it really helps boost the video in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you liked this video and you want to see more of them. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in a future video. Thank you, bye!